Charlie shrugged helplessly, took the check from his pocket and handed it to her. "Mom, here's the check." Elaine snatched the check excitedly and practically ran to the payment office, overjoyed. Seeing how eager she was, Charlie knew she was planning to pocket the rest of the money. He sighed and turned back to the ward. When he got back, Claire asked curiously, "Did my mom catch up with you?" Charlie nodded. "Mom insisted on taking the check. She said she'd pay the bill, okay?" Claire looked helpless. She knew her mother was obsessed with money and that the $180,000 refund was too much for her to resist. She knew her mom would definitely have some ideas about what to do with it. But there was nothing she could say. That's just how her mother was. If Claire argued, her mom would just have a complete meltdown. Meanwhile, Elaine rushed to the payment office, slapped the check on the counter in front of the clerk, and said, "I'm here to pay for Jacob Wilson's hospital bill." The clerk nodded, pulled up the file, and, after looking at the information, said, "You just need to pay a $20,000 deposit for now." "Okay," Elaine said, unable to hide her excitement. "Take it out of this check and deposit the rest into my personal account." She took out her bank card and handed it over. "Just put it right into this card." The clerk grunted, picked up the check, and glanced at it. Her eyes went wide. Elaine was confused by the clerk's reaction. Thinking she was being given a hard time on purpose, she snapped, "What's your problem? Can you just hurry up? I have things to do." The clerk snapped out of her daze. Seeing Elaine's impatient face, she got angry too. She threw the check right back at Elaine and said furiously, "Are you a patient from the psych ward or something? Trying to pay the hospital bill with a $100 million check? Did you forget to take your meds today?" "What? 100 million?" Elaine frowned. She bent down, picked the check up off the floor, and glanced at it. She was stunned by the long string of zeros. Counting them, she muttered to herself, 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, 10 million, 100 million. When she finished counting, her mind went blank. She blurted out, "It really is 100 million. This is a fortune." The clerk couldn't hide her disgust. "Are you crazy? Where did you get a fake check like this and have the nerve to come in here and try to scam me? Believe me, I'll call 911 right now and have you arrested for fraud." That snapped Elaine back to reality, and she suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. "Oh my God, that was too close. I almost got into huge trouble. There's no way this $100 million check could be real." Claire clearly said the refund was for $180,000, so this fake check must belong to Charlie. That good-for-nothing loser. It's bad enough that he's addicted to lying to all those powerful people, but now he's carrying a fake $100 million check with him. He almost got me thrown in jail. I don't know if that idiot did it on purpose or not. But this is all the proof I need of his deception. No way. Charlie tried to set me up. I'm taking this check, marching right up to my daughter, and confronting him with it. No matter what happens today, I'm going to make my daughter divorce that big liar Charlie was in the hospital room, talking with his wife, Claire, and Jacob. Just then, the door to the room was kicked open with a bang. His mother-in-law, Elaine, stormed in. As soon as she came in, she waved the $100 million check in her hand. Shaking it furiously, she yelled, "Charlie, you lowlife! How dare you try to trick me?" Charlie was stunned. "Mom, what are you talking about? When did I lie to you?" Elaine ignored him and ran over to Claire to complain. "Claire, you have to divorce this huge liar. This guy is no good. He tried to swindle your own mother." Claire was confused. "Mom, what's wrong?" Elaine shoved the check at Claire and said angrily, "Look, your good-for-nothing husband gave me a fake check for $100 million. The clerk at the hospital almost called the police on me. She called me a scammer." Crap. Charlie's heart sank. This $100 million check, Warnia had given it to him. Dang it, he must have put it in his pocket and mixed it up with the $180,000 check. It was over. How was he going to explain this? Claire took the check, her expression turning grim. She blurted out, "Charlie, What's the deal with this fake $100 million check? Are you involved in some kind of fraud now? Charlie quickly tried to explain, Honey, it's a misunderstanding. Claire frowned. What is going on? Explain it to me, right now. Elaine chimed in from the side, What is there to ask? That check has to be a prop he carries around to trick people. He just gave it to me by accident. Good thing he gave it to me. If he actually used it to fool someone, the police would catch him and lock him up for good. Then she turned back to Claire, her voice full of distress. Claire, this piece of trash has the nerve to run around with a fake $100 million check. Can you believe the audacity? If you don't divorce him, he's going to ruin this whole family. Claire's expression turned icy. She stared at Charlie and said, Charlie, if you don't explain this right now, I'm seriously considering divorcing you. I can handle you being poor, but if you're not walking a straight line, if you're stealing and scamming people, then I can't be with you. Charlie's mind raced and he quickly put on a wronged expression. Honey, let me be honest with you, he said, sounding hurt. That $100 million check, I actually bought it from a funeral home. A funeral home? Claire and Elaine were both stunned. What are you talking about? Charlie had no choice but to sigh. You know my old master passed away when I was 8, right? Well, I had a dream about him 2 days ago. He said he didn't have any money in the afterlife and was getting picked on. He asked me to burn some money for him. He sighed again. I couldn't just ignore it, so I went to a funeral home to ask what to do. They recommended this kind of check. They said one of these is worth $100 million, which is way more than a dozen bundles of that old-fashioned prop money. It's more efficient and better for the environment, they said. So I bought one for $10, planning to burn it at a crossroads tonight. I just never expected I'd grab the wrong one and give it to Mom by mistake. Claire asked suspiciously, Is what you're saying true? Charlie nodded quickly. It's true. Think about it. People are smart these days. Who would fall for a $100 million check? A check for that much couldn't even fool the hospital cashier. Claire thought about it. What Charlie said actually made sense. A $100 million check was so outrageous that no one would believe it was real. It would be a terrible tool for fraud. Thinking about this, her expression softened a little. She handed him the check and said, Just put it away and burn it for your dad tonight. Don't get them mixed up again. We don't need any more trouble. Charlie nodded quickly. Don't worry, honey, I know. I'll be careful. He then quickly pulled out the other check, the one for $180,000, and handed it to Elaine. Mom, this one's real. Here, he added, trying to smooth things over. It's a good thing you found out so quickly. If I'd actually burned this check, we would have lost a lot of money. Elaine glared at him. If it wasn't for the check, she wouldn't have let it go. But who's going to turn down money? If she took this check, the remaining $160,000 would be all hers. When he saw her take the check, Charlie breathed a sigh of relief. He had been careless, and it almost turned into a huge problem. Luckily, he'd thought on his feet. But still, his mother-in-law was so sure she was right, she'd outsmarted herself. If she ever found out that the $100 million check was real, she'd be so mad she'd probably jump right out the window. Just as he was relaxing, an old, anxious voice called out from outside the room. Jacob, my son, how are you? Mom is here to see you. Charlie frowned when he heard the voice. A moment later, Mrs. Wilson walked in, leaning on a cane, followed by Noah, Harold, and Wendy. Mrs. Wilson looked anxious and upset. Her eyes were red, as if she'd just been crying. She burst into tears as soon as she entered, rushing over to Jacob on the hospital bed. Jacob, she said, her voice choked with tears, I heard you were in a car accident, and I was so scared I nearly had a heart attack. I rushed right over to see you. How are you doing? Even though Claire was disgusted by these people, she knew they were here to visit her father, so she couldn't be rude. She stepped forward politely and said, Grandma, Dad is fine. Charlie already treated his injuries. He's healed. Mrs. Wilson breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, that's good, that's good. Jacob said a little awkwardly, Mom, Don't worry, I'm not going to die." In his heart, Jacob still held a grudge against Mrs. Wilson. But despite his complaints, there was still a bond. She was his mother, after all. How could he feel nothing for her? Seeing his mother so worried about him, crying like that, he couldn't help but be moved. Mrs. Wilson started crying again, scolding herself. "It's my fault, Jacob. I haven't been caring enough about you. When I heard you had an accident, I was filled with regret. I was so scared you were hurt. It made me realize none of our misunderstandings matter." With that, Lady Wilson was sobbing uncontrollably. Her words choked with tears. "Jacob, all these years, it's not that I didn't care about you. I just always wanted you to be a good man, so I was deliberately hard on you, hoping you would grow up faster. It's been difficult for me to do it all alone. Please don't blame me." Jacob's chest tightened, and he started to cry without even realizing it. He had always resented his mother. Why did she love his brother so much more than him? Why was his brother always encouraged while everything he did was seen as wrong? This resentment had been a heavy weight on his heart for so many years. But today, hearing his mom's tearful words, he suddenly felt that heavy weight finally start to lift.